This episode of the Restoration Today podcast is brought to you by Actionable Insights. Actionable Insights is the restoration industry's leading educational nonprofit, helping contractors and carriers settle claims on the daily. Go to getinsights.org.
Hey restorers, thanks for checking out a fresh episode of the Restoration Today podcast. Today we are talking about a hot topic. We are talking about estimating and getting paid, and the idea that a lot of restorers are moving estimating out of house and looking for new partners to help with the entire scoping and estimating of losses, and kind of taking some of that stuff out of your hands and into the hands of people who are truly experts in this area. So I am excited to be joined by Frankie Soriano with WeScope and Jonathan Siegel with Estimate QA. These two companies have a lot of synergy together. I'm just getting to know both of them, so I'm here to get to know them a little bit more right along with you, which I'm excited about. So Frankie, I'm going to toss it over to you to have you kind of introduce yourself and share a little bit about the background of WeScope.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. Thank you for having us on. My name is Frankie, running WeScope. We've been running for about 5 years now, and I got involved in this industry, owning a restoration company. Actually, a good friend of mine from college said, "Hey, I'm starting this company that's going to have fans and DHUs. Do you want to do this thing?" I had no clue what he was talking about, but I got involved a little bit, and a few years later, fell in love with the industry and just couldn't leave it. So during my time there, I found it interesting, and this estimating problem was like a real problem for us. We were trying to hire estimators, find estimators. I mean, we would use anybody in town that knew how to run Xactimate. So it was a problem that I really wanted to focus on. And when I sold that company back to my partner, I got a chance to start it here with WeScope. So now we've spent the last 5 years really committing to understanding not only estimating from a technical accuracy, but the entire workflow. We find estimating to be like a workflow issue, right? It's like, how do you get the documentation and the right people in the right places? So we embed ourselves into that process. And it's been fun trying to create a real solution as a co-source option for contractors out there that are struggling with this. So
perfect. Okay, I want to dive into that co-sourcing word in a little bit, but first, Jonathan, go ahead and introduce yourself and share a little bit about Estimate QA.
Yeah, great. So I have a background in finance and technology, and I've been friends with Frankie for 20 years, and observing what is occurring in this space, it just seems like there's a lot of room to help people automate the boring stuff and get to work better and make more money with less pain. And so I like to attack challenging problems that can make people's lives easier. And so Estimate QA, what we tried to do is take a lot of the things that are individually simple and that you probably know, but in some are quite complex and easy to miss.
Okay. What are some of the common things that you're seeing contractors are missing in their estimates? You don't have to list them all off, but maybe like top 3 you're seeing that are missed all the time.
So often, some of it is there's additional things that you can add and should add because they need to be fixed and they should be added. So additional items that might not be included in that specific line item, but are required for the repair. And then sometimes it's things that the carrier is going to ask for. And so if you can reduce revisions and back and forth, you can save yourself time.
Yes. Okay. All right. So share the synergy between your two companies and a little bit about the background between you two. I mean, it's deeper than just two companies that found out of each other one day and were like, hey, let's partner. Like there's some real synergy here. So I don't know who wants to answer that, but somebody tell the listeners the synergy between you two and kind of the background.
Yeah, I mean, I'll start and then fill in. But when we started WeScope, we knew that, it's so funny. One of the first questions we would get from contractors is, "Oh, are you outsourcing to India, or are you outsourcing, somewhere else to get these estimates done?" And my answer was like, I'd laugh. It's like, it's hard enough to find talented estimators in the US. I can't go to India. Like, this is not an easy thing to outsource. The amount of intimate knowledge you need is really hard. So one of the things that we had to do was actually invest in hiring the best estimators. Like our entire company is built around finding and then retaining the best estimators. And I say finding, like, even to this day, I don't want to say how many, but we're growing pretty big as a team, getting into like triple digits of employees. And even with that, like, we can't train estimators. We can't make them. Like, we're still trying to find them because there's so many aspects of what makes a good estimator. But with that rapid growth, I mean, this growth has really been over like the last 2 or 3 years. One of the biggest issues is quality assurance, right? Like, making sure that these estimates are to the quality of every one of our individual customers. And the catch with estimating, the reason I'm like personally fascinated with it, is because quality is this thing that everybody agrees with. Like, I want a quality estimate, but it means something different to every single customer and every single contractor. And then even for the contractors, think about it. If they're billing Allstate Insurance or a property manager or going direct to the homeowner, quality means a whole different thing for that estimate, right? So how do we navigate this when you start writing thousands and thousands of estimates on a monthly basis and you want that consistent output? It was not a job for humans. Like, we were throwing a lot of humans at it, and it wasn't. Enter Jonathan and the magic that he's created at Estimate QA, because that's what he said. He's like, dude, this stuff is boring and it's obvious. And it's like, I mean, we're not talking about even novel, interesting line items. Sometimes we're talking about coats of paint, contents, masking, the same things we've been talking about for decades, right? But your human eyes get tired. Even our expert estimators, when they do 10 estimates in a day, did you miss a line item? Did you do the wrong guideline? Jonathan was like, I can fix this with software. There's a quick way to check this, right? And he did. So we leverage it to the nines internally to keep consistency and accuracy. And it's the only thing that gives us confidence to put out a product that we know what it is, right? I mean, there's a lot of people touching these estimates. So
yeah. Jonathan, do you have something you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, and to be clear, I mean, there's so much expertise and judgment and experience that the estimators and the restoration professionals bring to bear in this space. And there's no concept that you can replace people, but what you can do is you can let people focus on the things that people are good at, and let the computers focus on the things that computers are good at. And so, things that require judgment or some experience, or a trust of a professional that it's correct, you need the person. But individually checking so like a myriad permutations of all the hundreds of items in an estimate, don't flag some combination, is easier for the computer to do and help free the person to do, kind of elevate them.
So how much is kind of the QA side of this evolving all the time based on what estimates look like? I mean, and Jonathan, I'm also curious what you see kind of the future of technology looking like, maybe just even within the next 6 to 12 months when it comes to how technology can play a role in the estimate side of things. Because I think restorers have kind of reached this point where they're realizing, okay, we can do remote estimating, but we're not going to fully replace people in the estimating and in the restoring of buildings, right? But we need this technology side of it to play a role, and this quality assist part of it is such a huge component. So where do you see this going for the industry, and how often is this updating to make sure that the quality is on point with what's being expected?
Right. So we're updating our knowledge base on a daily basis, and we have full-time people looking at program guidelines and construction guidelines, and making sure that database is up to date. And that process was a little bit of a challenge to figure out how to do that and get that going. In terms of technology, there's all kinds of incredible technologies and computer vision that can help automate a lot more boring stuff. I think ultimately it's been said that a lot of this technology, it's kind of like having infinite interns. The technology is it's incredible, it's smart, and it's infinitely scalable, but it doesn't necessarily have the judgment and experience that a human has. And so it's kind of like if you had infinite clonable interns that were tireless and would do exactly, and they never quit. That's kind of what we have.
Okay. What are some of the biggest challenges that you're seeing? I mean, we talked about how difficult it is to find estimators. So aside from how difficult it is to find estimators in the first place, what are some of the big challenges you're both seeing on the contractor side when it comes to creating estimates and then getting those estimates approved?
I don't know if this session is going to be long enough to
I know.
to
I
hit
know.
all
It's
the
a big
topics.
question.
It's a big question that I mean that honestly, it sounds kind of boring to say, but the workflow, we say this often that we get labeled as an outsourced estimating company. Number one, I don't believe we're an outsource option. I believe we're like a true co-source option, and I can kind of dive into that. But number two, I really think that we're a workflow company. The estimating problem is around, do you have a repeatable and like reliable workflow to get to every job and document it in a certain way? And like plainly put, still today, one of the biggest issues is, hey, Joe gets back from the field and Sam's asking, hey, where's the paperwork? And where did you put the photos? I put them on iCloud, but the document's here. And oh, but Tim's on call tonight. So he took the dry logs with him. Like, I wish it was a more sophisticated problem, but it's literally just like organizing all of the data into one place. And yes, a lot of CRMs and technology have tried to solve this, and certainly better than it was, a decade ago, but we still see that today, right?
Mm-hmm.
So step one is around picking a workflow that is not perfect, but it works 100% of the time. And I think this is one of those classics that, perfection is the enemy of great, or one of those where we have a lot of pride as contractors and we want every job to be like perfect. And because of that, we create a process that maybe, say, an owner could do or the top employee could do because they know everything about everything. But the one day at 9 p.m. when you send out the technician in the middle of the night, they may not have that much knowledge. System breaks down entirely, right?
Yep.
So it sounds simple, but it's really around picking a repeatable workflow, leveraging 3D cameras and some standardizing documentation to be able to kind of use all that information gathered for the estimate, for the project management, right? And kind of downstream. Oddly enough, I really think that the root of this is it starts there, right? That's the biggest issue we see, besides then can you find people that know how to like codify this with Xactimate or Symbility, right? So there's a whole nother fish. Yeah.
Yes. Symbility, especially. Jonathan, is there anything else you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, and to Frankie's point, part of this is also a really valuable training tool where you can kind of encode that information and have a real-time assistant or spell checker for newer estimators to make sure that they're not missing anything.
Yeah, we use it. Honestly, that's just piggybacking on that. Like, we don't hire novice or rookie, like starting estimators. So we don't have that get up time like he's talking, but we do have what we call like the alignment, where estimators come, we find great estimators that were producing maybe 3 estimates a day or 2 estimates a day. We're going to have them start doing 7 to 10 and for different client profiles. So that learning time, like they can use a tool like this, right? To say, upload the estimate, get the feedback, get the quick learning feedback without having to have a big coaching session with the management team, right? Of saying, okay, like we don't do vast training sessions anymore. We're able to use this technology to kind of apply the kind of alignment rather than even development training. But he's right. I assume, if you're a brand new estimator, what better tool than to throw in like a bad estimate and get all this feedback on like, oh, by the way, right?
Yes. What does the process look like here if you're a contractor and you're using WeScope and Estimate QA? Like, what is the contractor doing and sending? I'm guessing a WeScope is first and then it's going to Estimate QA and then it's getting sent out. Like, what does this process look like?
Yeah, so I mean, the tool anyone can use. You can go to the website and log in and try it for free. Pretty relatively inexpensive, and you take your Xactimate rough draft and you upload it, and in 30 seconds it tells you what to change.
And the products don't have to be used together. That is really worth noting. You don't have to do WeScope and Estimate QA together. They are separate companies. They just happen to be here together. So, okay, yes, good point. Okay, keep going, Jonathan.
So the right, and so WeScope uses this in their process. WeScope will do the whole job for you, and they use this tool in their process to make themselves more efficient. But we kind of view it as a standalone third party independent arbiter with no real agenda other than to help you have all the best information about how to make your estimate most complete.
How have you seen, Jonathan, contractors use estimate queue? I mean, hopefully they're using this to improve over time, right? Like they're maybe the first one that they put through has 100 red flags, and hopefully the next one has 90 or less. How have you seen contractors improve over time by being able to use a process like this?
Fewer and fewer revisions over time as you catch these items, and hopefully also you could add some dollars to the estimate compliantly.
How often are you finding that
from our usage? From our usage of it, I can say we've had a drop in our revision counts by being able to use it, but it's one of those things that you tend to then want to use it less because you're like, I figured out those items.
Yeah.
Luckily, we've embedded this, so our estimators don't have a choice. They have to run it through, which it ends up being one of those things where they think it's going to be like, I know. But again, they're humans. We're all humans doing this thing that you can get cross-eyed on. So we still end up catching some items in there, right? Pre-revision. That is nice. So it's this weird thing where I assume, I don't know Jonathan's user base that well, but I assume that people tend to drop off on these tools because they get all the value, right? It's like, I know all the items. But then if they check back in a few weeks, and run one through, you'll just catch things that you did. I mean, I don't know. We run across it all the time, and I wouldn't think that we do. But it's hard to remember when you're writing 300 line items. Like, did you miss one? Yeah, probably, right?
Right. And how often are you finding? Sorry, go ahead, Jonathan. Go ahead.
Oh no, sorry. As a company, you have users with the accounts are linked, so everyone the owner can see what multiple estimators are doing and sort of try to also have some uniformity in that process on a continuous basis.
And how often is this calling out items that are missed, line items that are missed versus line items that are overused? Do you have any sort of gauge of that? I'm more curious, how often is an estimate reviewed and it's like, wow, you guys missed $5,000 in things you could have put on there versus, you have $5,000 too much on here. Probably the contractors that have $5,000 too much on there know it, and maybe they're not running it through, but that's more what I
mean. Probably more the former, actually, in terms of adding, but it might be saying hey, if you want to get this approved, remember to add photo evidence for this particular thing. Or hey, you can do this, you have to document it to get it approved on the first try.
Okay. What do you tell contractors, probably Frankie, you especially, what do you tell contractors who are nervous about the idea of outsourcing their estimating to somebody else? Well, you guys aren't here. Are you sure? How do you know?
Yeah, I'd say you shouldn't outsource. You should co-source.
Okay. All right. Let's go there. That's a good idea. I have it in bold at the bottom and someone asked it. So what is co-sourcing versus outsourcing?
No, it's honestly a word that I stumbled into recently. I didn't know it was a real word, but it embodied everything that we've actually been doing at WeScope quite literally. So now I'm really wrapping my head around. I was like, how did I miss this? But the truth is, outsourcing conceptually is this idea, accounting is the easiest way to think about this, that I'm outsource my taxes, right? So you package your QuickBooks, you send it to the accountant, you get back a tax return. You just outsource that entire activity. Co-sourcing is really more this concept of maybe I am an accountant at my company and I'm going to leverage an expert to help me with the tax process. But I know I'm finally that tax form, I'm going to put it together. And I know I'm going to be responsible for this, but I really need some expert knowledge to help me put all these components together and administrative aspects. And that's really for us, when I go back to the workflow, that's how WeScope approaches these problems. I think most of the industry has viewed the outsourcing versus in-housing as this, who can do the estimate either faster, higher, or more accurate, depending if they're program heavy or non-program heavy. Again, everybody has a different take, but that's how they're viewing it, is around just the technical accuracy of these estimates, right? And the speed, right? WeScope again sees this as a workflow problem, which means that we actually have to embed ourselves into the workflow to actually help the contractors get the ultimate thing done, which is the approved estimates, not just an estimate. Anybody can deliver an estimate. Any outsourcing company can deliver an estimate, but how do you get this thing approved, right? And there's other painful parts. Yes. So as an example, our clients are we're plugged into their software. We integrate and we're partners with folks like Matterport and all the CRMs out there to gather this data. So when the field documentation is done, we see that. We see all the notes. We have our own app where they can capture videos and scope notes and other information. We're under their direction on their scoping policies, and we deliver these back into their CRM, into their Xactimates and Symbilities, so that it's actually part of their process. And like recently, we just got approved as an Alacrity Affinity partner. So we're formally a partner with Alacrity, where we're actually helping them get through this revision process that stinks for everybody, right? It's a painful process. So that's a bit of the difference. And that's where the co-sourcing, we can't possibly imagine how many estimates we're helping settle. Like we couldn't possibly do that unless we knew exactly what the contractor was comfortable with, either, taking off on the revision, accepting or declining or pushing back. We couldn't possibly do that if we weren't just like them in the office. So we always say, if you want to understand how it's like to work with WeScope, just imagine like the last best estimator that you hired, and that's it. That's the last estimator that you'll hire, right? Because we are as close to in-house as an out-of-house option, which that's co-sourcing apparently.
So. That's co-sourcing. I love it. Okay, Jonathan, anything you wanted to add? I have a follow-up, but go for
it. I'd say that we are doing a small automated piece of something that looks like co-sourcing, like where we have this, we're sharing this knowledge, and we can do more and more over time as we gather more knowledge and more capabilities. But we can enable you to both make your own process more efficient. You can hold someone like WeScope accountable as a third party in an automated fashion if you just wanted to do a check on what somebody else is doing. If you are an estimator, you can make yourself more efficient. So for anyone who needs to look at these documents, it's a great way to spell check yourself or spell check others.
It's one of those technologies that's as no-brainer as when, I'll use their name because they're a partner, but also they were just one of the first ones to really attack this industry with Matterport. It was like one of those just no-brainers for contractors to use. It's been so levered. I always say before that, yes, they had a couple $1,000 camera originally, but people were buying like the FLIR infrared cameras for the same price point. And while that had its own value, the 3D walkthroughs are just absolute game changers for every aspect of restoration, right? And this, technology that Jonathan's built with Estimate QA, it's another one. They're not the only one. There's other tools out there, but that is a no-brainer technology for anybody writing estimates. Like, you need to plug this into your process. At the level we're doing it, we couldn't even operate without something like that. But anybody else, it's so simple. If in less than a minute, you can get feedback, an entire quality assurance review on an estimate. These are not things that existed when I had my restoration company just like 6-7 years ago. It's crazy.
Yes. Technology has come so far. Okay, so on that, I wanted to ask really quick before we wrap it up, how much both of you are seeing Symbility estimates needed? Frankie, on your side, how many, are you seeing more contractors need Symbility estimates made? And Jonathan, are you seeing more Symbility estimates come through the software?
So on our side, we, yes, back in January of last year, we were freaking out, like I assume most of the industry was, when we had only Xactimate, writers, and we were super scared. So I tried to hire. I went everywhere to find these Symbility writers that, guess what, did not exist, right? It's like very few and far between. So that is one competency we've had to develop. Now it's breaking almost 20-25% of our writing. It is moving at a rapid pace now, it seems. So I expect from what I'm hearing and trends and adoption, it seems like that trend is only going to continue to expand and not decrease. So we're prepping for that from a capacity standpoint to be able to kind of manage it. I think everybody needs to be, whether it's hit home or not yet. It does not seem, people are equating this back to when farmers took on Symbility a few years back and then left it. So they believe it's a pendulum swing. I could be wrong. I'll go on the record here. This one doesn't feel like a pendulum swing. It feels a bit of a new trend line, and they're getting some adoption. So I think people should be, ready for it.
Jonathan, what do you think? Are you seeing more Symbility running through?
Yeah, we're seeing, more requests to work on Symbility. It still seems like most people, most of the volume is Xactimate.
Yeah.
I think on the exterior side, it sounds like there's more Symbility occurring. And there's desire for it. I think a lot of the clearly a lot of the frustration is around Xactimate, and we're trying to solve a lot of the frustration.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. Okay, so before we wrap it up, I want to ask you kind of both the same question. So Jonathan, I'm going to toss this one to you first. What do you see in the next 6 to 12 months? What's your outlook on kind of automating the boring stuff? Where do you think automation is going just in the next 6 to 12 months, maybe in the restoration industry? We tend to be, which I'm sure you notice, because I can tell that you're pretty technically savvy and forward thinking. Our industry is chronically behind on technology. So where do you see us? Yeah, as Frankie laughs, it's true. So where do you see us going in the next 6 to 12 months, hopefully with this automation aspect?
Well, the cool thing is that computers can see stuff now, but I mean, to some extent, they've been able to see things for a while, but it's hard to get it to give you reliable results. And this space is pretty complicated, especially in the interior of a house with all the trades on top of each other. I think in the next 6 to 12 months, the industry can make incremental progress, one foot in front of the other, in terms of automating things, but it's going to take experts working with technology people to really figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
And make it reliable.
Frankie, what about you? Where do you kind of see this remote estimating need going in the next 6 to 12 months?
I mean, a couple of things. From a remote estimating, from a pure technology on estimating, if you go to any trade show or conference for the last 3 years, it was like, get ready, it's going to be a photo, and then you're going to have a full perfect estimate done, right? And there won't be an issue.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't think that's coming for a while, right? Realistically speaking, I think that there's a lot, like Jonathan just said, the technology of this is actually pretty complex. So I wish we would stop getting over our ski tips on this one and kind of just live in the moment that what we have is actually, ChatGPT is pretty spectacular on its own. So I think that there's a long road ahead of continuing for people like us with this expertise to keep working with technology providers to keep, embedding this process and improving it. But it seems like a long road. A few years ago, I said internally to our team, look, with WeScope, there is a wave and we are just trying to catch it. And we believe that we were early on that wave, but ultimately it was a wave where estimating is a problem, not just for contractors, it's for insurance companies, the adjuster, you hear like, the silver wave and all this, that's just like coming where there's this shortage of domain knowledge. And we need the technology and the speed to even be able to keep up with our current needs. So what we're seeing is a lot of, especially with private equity groups and other finance groups and strategic purchases and, a lot of the kind of M&A activity going on here, there is a lot of expansion of logos, right? In this line. And with that, with growth, companies like WeScope, or you need to increase your capacity of estimating regardless. Like we're doing this full time and we barely keep pace. It's hard to grow at that pace. So companies that are expanding specifically, they have to find a way, if they haven't already, they have to find a way to embed this to some portion of their estimating, right? And their needs. To what level, that's always specific, right? But it's something that I think, and we're seeing it. More and more people are looking at it. 5 years ago, I was explaining what Matterport was and how this could work. Today, it's more like, we've tried a few things. Why are you different, right? It's already kind of starting to shift.
Sure. Yeah, that makes good sense. Okay, gentlemen, anything else that either of you want to add before we wrap it up? I appreciate you both being here and sharing the synergy between the two platforms. I think both have a lot of value for the contractors and address a lot of big needs in the industry. So congrats to both of you.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, the only thing I'll add from our side is our shameless pitch that we love to get to know the contractors before we do anything. So if anybody wants to go through a discovery call where we literally just break through your workflows of how you're estimating today and if a solution like ours could or would fit and what it would do, I guess it's a sales call, but really it's a, hey, how are you doing it today? And is there any place for improvement? We are always open to that. So just check out our website and, schedule a call there. And I think Jonathan and Estimate QA, you can sign up for like free, right? I mean, I think he has a free version out there that you can literally start uploading estimates this afternoon and getting feedback. So there's no reason to not at least try that. It seems silly.
Yeah, we wanted to make something that looks like a modern web experience in the space that's easily accessible and cheap and no commitment to try it.
Okay. Love it. Okay. For people who are listening, you can go to WeScope.com and EstimateQA.com for both companies. You can check them out there. And gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. I hope you have an awesome rest of your day.
Yeah, you too. Thank you so much for having us.
For more Restoration Today and the latest news, visit our website, cnrmagazine.com, and find the latest episodes of the Restoration Today podcast on your favorite podcasting platform.